Hi, and welcome to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. I'm Dupe Witherick, alcohol free wellbeing and transformational coach, and the best selling author of A Cocktail of Clarity, How to Ditch Drinking, Embody a Joyful New Identity, and Thrive Alcohol Free. This podcast will show you that being alcohol free is not what the traditional narrative says. And even though alcohol is so ingrained in our society, it is okay to give yourself permission to stop drinking if you want to. And you do not have to wait until you hit rock bottom. It is certainly not boring, and I believe ditching drinking is just the start to living an extraordinary life. By getting rid of this one thing, it allows the doors to open to endless possibilities and opportunities. Each week, we will have guests on who are at various stages of the alcohol-free journey, from those who are curious to those who have been alcohol-free for years. We will also have experts on talking about different topics relating to alcohol and beyond. Through these conversations, you will discover what it means to thrive alcohol-free. Enjoy. Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. I'm so pleased you are here. I am Dupe, your host, and I hope you're having a wonderful week. Another Thursday has come. So I've had quite a fun week. I was speaking at the Summer Fun Summit on Monday, and that was organised and hosted by Anna K. Morris, who was recently on the podcast. And I did a session on Monday with two other incredible women, Nyla Rogers and Rebecca Rankin, and we talked about being alcohol-free, mocktails, finding the love of your life. Spoiler alert, it's you. We talked about cyclical patterns and the summer solstice as well. So if you didn't get a chance to watch it, you can still sign up for free and get the recordings. And there will be a final session this evening as well. So feel free to come along. And in total, there are 9 other women talking about various topics over the 4 days, all with the aim of helping you have the best summer. So Anna really created a lovely space, and it's a really great way, hopefully, to be inspired to enjoy your summer. So why not go and grab your ticket and have a listen, and then you will no doubt have a summer full of fun. So you can find that link in the show notes. Okay, so I've been thinking about the people that I work with, and a number of people worry about stopping drinking because everyone around them is still drinking, and they feel that they'll have a really strong sense of FOMO. So they think that they're missing out on something, and they just have this fear of missing out. So what I do is I talk about JOMO, the joy of missing out, and you are not giving anything up. You are only gaining, and it does just get better and better when you stop drinking. So to bring that to life, because we've got so many memories of alcohol and what it's done for us and what we think it's done for us over the years, that it's all about creating these new memories. So one helpful tip is to journal. And this will help you to create those new memories that you will be looking at. So every day, I suggest you take 5 minutes to journal. You can journal what was good about the day and what you want to remember about the day, how you want to feel, and what you are grateful for. And if you do that on a regular basis, you'll start to gather new memories and realize that it's JOMO that you're experiencing now and not FOMO. So I encourage you to go and do that. Okay, so today's guest is Janet Gourand. And Janet has had many years of experience of corporate life in both Europe and South Africa. When she decided to stop drinking alcohol, she could find very little support in South Africa. She didn't want to go into rehab and decided that AA was not for her. So Janet got sober by her own efforts and by attending a workshop in London. As her journey continued, she decided to use her professional background in training and development to design and facilitate her own workshop in order to support people who wish to moderate or quit drinking alcohol. Janet set up a membership program and holds workshops via Zoom, which are attended by people from all over the world. Janet is married with one son and a chihuahua called June. and she's originally from London, but Janet relocated to Cape Town in 2001. So I'm delighted that Janet's here and we have a really interesting conversation. I was also lucky enough to be on her podcast, Tribe Sober. So if you want to hear my story, then feel free to head to Janet's podcast, Tribe Sober, as well, which comes out weekly. Okay, so without further ado, here is the conversation with Janet. So welcome, Janet. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. How are you?
Such a pleasure, Dupe. I'm very well, thank you.
Good, good. So for people who might not know you, why don't you tell us what brings you here today?
Well, let me give you a few bio facts, maybe,
Mm.
because like yourself, I had a corporate career in London. Like yourself, I learnt how to work hard and play hard. In the year 2000, I went on holiday with my husband to Cape Town.
Mm.
And we were both getting to that stage in our corporate careers where we could start thinking about retiring, and we were getting tired of it, frankly.
Mm.
As when you've been in corporate for decades, you start wondering if there's another way to earn your living. So we came to Cape Town and we just fell in love with Cape Town. It completely blew us away. You know, South Africa is such a beautiful country with the space and the light.
Mm.
And we really fell in love with it. And we ended up buying a holiday house while we were here. And that hadn't been our intention
Wow.
at all. When we told our friends we were going to South Africa on a holiday, they were saying things like, well, isn't it terribly dangerous over there? And we think, no, I'm sure it's fine. And we got back and they said, oh, you're okay then. We said, yes, we're okay. We bought a house actually. So people thought we were crazy, but we used our holiday home for a couple of years, coming and going. And then in the end, we thought, why do we go back to London when it's so much nicer here? So we moved and we've been very
Wow.
happy here for the last 20 years. So I started consulting. I was an HR director in London. And when I came over here, I started freelancing as an HR consultant. And I really enjoyed it. I did that for about a decade. And it was just so interesting because there's such different issues here, as you can imagine, to the
Mm.
ones that I was used to. So it
Mm.
really refreshed my career and my thinking, and I loved it. So I did retire from that after doing it for 10 years. And I'd always had this dream of my retirement. I'd be kind of on the tube in London sometimes early in the morning, you know what it's like, feeling exhausted and thinking there's got to be something else out there. And I used to dream of my retirement. I had this little fantasy, and I thought, I'm going to be in my garden and there's going to be sunshine and I'm going to be sitting there with my glass of wine and my book and I'm going to be so happy. So I would fast forward when this day-to-day stress got too much. And it makes me smile now when I think about it because I got my sunlit garden here in Cape Town, but the wine is definitely alcohol-free wine. So that's my general story. I'm married to a French man and I have a son who is 42 now and he's
Wow.
in London. He's a bit of a London boy
Yeah.
now and he's a musician, so he has to be in his band and whatever. But he does come out and see me at least once a year for a couple of weeks and we Zoom. So it's okay. It's
Mm.
all worked out well.
Amazing. Amazing. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's so interesting and I absolutely resonate with the corporate world environment and the work hard, play hard and yeah. What's the corporate culture like in South Africa? Was you said that obviously the things you were dealing with were different, but what was the culture like?
Well, it's changing fast and it's quite different in Joburg. Joburg changing faster than Cape Town. We're all a bit sleepy down here. But
Mm.
it's interesting. The South African constitution is very inspirational.
Mm.
And there's such a desire for more equality and human rights, etc. And that's why I enjoyed my work so much because they have something here called a scorecard for Black empowerment.
Mm.
So I used to go into companies and do a survey, really, I guess, an employee survey. And then I would present to the board how closely or far away I felt they were to this scorecard, because they would have to make reports at the end of the year to government, and they would get fined if they weren't at least showing some effort to progress. So I used to love that. So to answer your question, I would say that things are improving, but it's still it's too slow. It's much too slow. There is a legacy of apartheid here still, as you can imagine. I think
Mm,
it's going to take another generation, but
mm,
it's exciting because it is moving. And certainly in Joburg, there's a real significant Black middle class, and you can see all the
mm,
aspirations, a bit like we used to be in London in the
mm,
corporate thing.
mm.
They're all after their nice cars, and the girls have got their fabulous shoes
Yeah,
and clothes.
yeah,
And the drink, oh, the marketing drives me crazy. You see these billboards everywhere, and it'll have a table of really successful, beautiful people, and they've all got the
yeah,
bottle of scotch, the brand, and the
yeah.
ladies with their champers. So it's very interesting.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, because I do know there are a couple of alcohol-free wines, good South African wines that are
Oh
out at the
yeah, we've got
moment.
plenty. Yeah, yes,
Yeah, so
we've got our very own online store, which is called Drink Nil, and
oh,
they only
brilliant.
do alcohol-free drinks, and they've got more than
Mm.
100 choices, and they deliver to your door. So
Oh,
they're
wow.
fabulous. Yeah.
Gosh, that's fantastic.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
brilliant,
Oh yes.
brilliant.
Yeah. We're getting there. We haven't got bars yet or anything, alcohol-free bars, but it'll come.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like you were in the corporate world for quite a while. You got to 2000, you had a couple of years and you moved to South Africa. So tell me about your drinking career and what that was like.
Well, that ran parallel to my corporate career, but I started like you as a teenager and got into my 20s. I shared a flat in Kensington with 3 or 4 other people, and we all had good jobs and a good social life. There'd always be some wine on the go at home, and it was great. And we'd always have a couple of glasses every night. Nobody thought anything of it. It was completely
Mm,
normalized.
mm,
And then I had what I call my first wake up call. I divide my story into 3 wake up calls. The first 2 I ignored, the third one I finally got it. But at the very tender age of 25 years old, and we were having a party at home in the apartment. So we'd got plenty of people around and drinking and whatever. And I had my first serious blackout. And I don't remember any of this, but I was told
mm,
that at about midnight, I announced to one of my flatmates that I'd had enough. I was tired. I was going to bed. And I always used to have a bath before I went to bed. It was just my little routine. So
mm,
apparently, I went into the bathroom, even in this blackout, locked the door because there were other people in the flats. And I got into the bath and I must have passed out because my
um,
flatmate started worrying because she didn't hear me come out of the bathroom. So she started hammering on the door, no reply. So she panicked and they dialed 999. And good job she did, or I wouldn't be here now.
oh,
But the
gosh.
firemen arrived and the ambulance people, and they knocked the door down. There I was
Oh,
under the water
goodness.
in my bath, and I had to be
Um,
resuscitated, and I was in hospital the next day. And I remember they sent a psychiatrist to talk to me in the morning saying things like, "Now, why did you try and kill yourself? I think you should talk to someone about it." And I said, I didn't. I was just having a nice time, just having a few glasses of wine. So looking back, I see that as a definite red flag because nobody else there went through an experience like that evening.
mm,
So it should have been a warning sign to me, but it wasn't. And what happened is we laughed it off, myself and my
mm,
flatmates. So I became a story, a bit of a
mm,
legend, and people would
mm,
say, "Oh, did you hear about Janet in her bath? What an idiot!" And we all used to laugh about it.
mm.
So that was my first warning sign. At the age of 30, I married my first husband, who was also a drinker, a big drinker like me. But again, we had that kind of marriage. We both had good jobs. We'd come home from work, have a shot of Jack Daniels. I always remember that. And then a bottle of wine with dinner. I mean, what could be more normal? Weekends, we'd have dinner parties that would go on till 3 a.m. in the morning, because, of course, all our friends were drinkers.
Mm,
And it, again, completely normalized. Nobody talked about having a problem or drinking too much or anything. We were just
mm,
working hard and playing hard, of
yeah.
course. But we
Mm,
were, looking back, we were just functioning alcoholics, but I didn't think I was at the time.
mm,
So that carried on. In my 40s, I got divorced and married to the Frenchman. And that was when things started changing, because the French have a different attitude towards alcohol than the English. They don't tend to go out to get hammered like some of us used to. That it would never occur to them really. A wine is something nice to have with their food. And when my husband discovered that I was putting away a bottle of wine every evening, he thought it was a bit over the top, and he said,
mm,
"Oh, I think you should cool it a bit. It's not good for you." And so we
mm,
started having arguments about it. He wasn't happy. So because I
mm,
wanted to stay with this guy, I started to moderate. I tried to moderate. So there began my decade of trying and failing to moderate, really. And the next wake up call came when I got breast cancer. That was wake up call number two. And of
mm,
course, now we know that there's definitely a link between alcohol and cancer, and particularly breast
mm,
cancer. And I had it quite badly. I had chemotherapy, mastectomy, etc.
mm,
And even that didn't stop me drinking, because nobody talked about the link. This was in
mm,
2006. And even
mm,
my oncologist, I asked him, should I eat a special kind of food? Shall I give up alcohol? And I swear, even though I was dependent in those days, I would have stopped if he'd said, you better stop, or this thing might come back again, because I was
mm,
scared. It was a
mm, of
horrible
course.
experience. But he said, "Oh no, my dear," he said, "you've been through a very difficult time." He said, "You've got to enjoy your life now." He said, "And there's nothing wrong with the odd glass of wine." But of course, to me, that was, oh, I can go back to my bottle of wine a night. And he
Mm,
didn't mean that, but you know what
mm,
it's like when you're in denial. The communication doesn't land as it should do. So carried on drinking. And my third wake up call came at the ripe old age of 63, when I was away with a bunch of friends. We were in a beautiful big house on the West Coast here that we'd hired just to hang out together. And it was quite a boozy weekend. Apart from my poor long suffering husband, we were all into our alcohol. So it was the kind of weekend that you have bubbly with breakfast in the morning, and it just
yeah.
kind of takes off
Mm,
from there. And on the Saturday was a complete blur to me. Sunday morning, woke up feeling dreadful. Husband a bit grumpy. Thought, oh, what happened? And then sitting at breakfast, being very British, pretending that I was absolutely fine, stiff upper lip. And then I said, "Oh, let's go to the next village today. I heard that there's a really nice house that we can rent next time we come this way." And there was this weird hush. And one of the guys said, "Well, actually, Janet, we walked there yesterday and you were with us, and you were walking okay, you were talking, you weren't stumbling around, you weren't slurring your words. You seemed absolutely fine." And I had no memory of it at all. And
mm,
over the years, I'd had plenty of blackouts, but there were more those blackouts where the end of the evening's a bit blurry and you kind of wake up and check that your jacket and your handbag got home safely with you. But
mm,
nothing on this scale, nothing where I had a complete blank. So I Googled it, and it said that that kind of blackout happens when your brain is so soaked in alcohol that it can't even make the memories in the first place. And for some reason,
mm,
that chilled me to the bone, really, because I thought, well, the breast cancer proves that I'm damaging my body here, but I really don't want brain damage on top of that. And that
mm,
scared me into stopping. So the next morning, I said to my husband, "That's it, I'm done with alcohol." And to be fair to him, he didn't say, "Oh, I've heard that before." He said, "Do you know, you've never said that before. You've always said you're going to cut down." So, of course, now I realize if you are dependent, it's much easier to stop than it is to try and control something that you're addicted to. I mean, you can't moderate heroin. So if you're addicted to alcohol, you can't moderate it. So then I had to, of course, find out how to quit. So I trotted off to AA. This was 9 years ago, didn't know what else to do. And I couldn't find my people here because the meetings tended to be very male orientated. There were people that had lost everything. There were people that were drinking whiskey when they woke up in the morning to stop the shaking. So I just couldn't relate to them. And I would leave those meetings thinking, well, I'm not that bad. So it was a bit counterproductive. And it wasn't until I found this workshop in London, just a one-day thing, and the information was good, though it was run by a nurse. There was a lot about the health dangers of drinking alcohol that I didn't know about. So that was interesting. And a little bit about changing your behavior. But most importantly, there were women like me there. I felt like I found my people because they all had good jobs, nice families, and they were thinking a bottle of wine a night. And they knew that it wasn't sustainable. So we formed a little WhatsApp group and stayed connected. And that's how I got sober.
Gosh, that's an incredible journey. And thank you for sharing so honestly and vulnerably. I mean, the three wake-up calls that you described, and isn't it funny that we just keep going? And I think in our 20s, we think we're invincible anyway. We think nothing's going to touch us. So I imagine you had that experience and just thought, well,
Yeah.
it's funny. It is funny. I remember doing stupid things in my 20s and thinking it was funny, and it really was probably quite scary.
And now I think back and I think I could have missed my whole life.
Yeah, exactly. And then with the breast cancer as well, I'm sorry you had to go through that, but I'm so pleased that it seems, because that's quite a number of years now, isn't it, since you were diagnosed? So
Yeah,
that's
yeah. I mean,
amazing.
I've been
Yeah,
cancer free for 14,
yeah,
15 years now. And
amazing.
I mean, you can
Congratulations.
never guarantee that it won't come back. But these days, at least, I feel that I'm looking after myself and I'm doing everything to make sure that it doesn't come back. I'm doing everything within my power. And if it does come back, then at least I'm not going to blame myself as well as all
No.
the other emotions. So I'm pleased that I'm doing that.
But it always fascinates me how the medical profession, healthcare, just don't seem to think it's a problem unless
Yeah,
you are sinking a bottle of vodka a day. They just think actually it's absolutely, and it's because the majority, well, I'm generalizing, but a number of them drink, and so they don't see the issue with it, and so
yeah.
then they're not, and so if you mention it, you're probably reflecting on them, and they don't want to admit there's anything wrong with it, so they just
Yeah,
sort of,
but at medical school, they don't spend any time on it.
I
Crazy.
know, which is
They just learn
unbelievable.
about which drug you give people for which illnesses, from what I can gather.
Oh, exactly. And you just think, wow, it's a shame, really, because you could have had the opportunity then. And as you said, if your oncologist had said,
Mm,
stop, then it will help
would have
you,
done. I would
you
have
would have done
found
it.
help
Of
to stop.
course.
For my
Of
health,
course you
I
would.
thought, well,
Yeah.
I'm all right. So might as well
Mm.
enjoy life, as the guys said.
Yeah, exactly. Gosh, crazy. So, so with the final one, that the third wake up call and third time lucky, you thought about it. It's interesting because I think people would go one of two ways, really. You might be at the point where you're like, well, actually, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to keep going, or you do what you did and you think, actually enough's enough. And
Yeah.
so what do you think, because you also mentioned that your husband said that's the first time you'd said that that was
Mm,
it.
mm,
What do you think it was exactly? And you did Club Soda and met some people, but what else kept you on that journey and to where we are now, which is 9 years later?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, because this blackout had frightened me so much. And in fact, I was interviewing a guy, you may have heard him. He's called Professor Nuts. Do you know about him and his
Yes.
studies and
Yeah.
this sentient
Cent
drink that he's,
Censure. Yeah.
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 Yeah, anyway, I interviewed him and I told him that story about that blackout, and he said that those kind of blackouts are a precursor to brain damage. So thank goodness you did stop them when
Wow.
you did. So yes, I was determined, and I am quite strong, when I decide something, I tend to stick to it. And my secret
Mm,
was that I decided that was it. There wasn't going to be any more cutting
mm,
down or moderation. But when I think back now, I was gritting my teeth. I was white knuckling it. But I
mm,
did white knuckle it for 3 months, 4 months. And then The Naked Mind came out, which was
mm,
perfect timing for me because I read about the limiting beliefs and I was
mm.
thinking, wow, so this isn't just about willpower, because I
No.
thought I was needing willpower. And I mean, that, as we know, willpower doesn't last. You
No.
can do a dry January on willpower, but you can't live the rest of your life with willpower. So
No.
the fact that there was a whole mindset change involved here, I found really interesting. So I started doing that kind of work. But then I hit a real depression in about 4 or 5 months sober. I just was really hit by this very low mood. And a
Mm.
lot of people in our community get that as well. We call it the early sobriety blues now. We've given it a name. But I didn't know what it was, and I just felt really low. And I also felt a little bit trapped. I felt as if I'd painted myself into a corner
Mm,
because my husband and my son as well kept telling me how proud they were of me. And I'd been
mm,
blabbing to everybody and blogging about my sober life and all this. And I thought, oh, this is okay, but I'm a bit bored and I'm missing my drinking buddies. And you know how you think back to the good nights you had out with alcohol. So I
mm,
was just feeling down, but I thought, well, I'm going to stick to it and I'm just going to get through it somehow. And even if the rest of my life is really dull and boring, I used to say to myself, I'm quite old now and I had loads of amazing years, so I'll just stay home and read my books and I'll be all right. So I kind of talked myself into this very small, quiet life. And then I used to do a lot of walking here by the sea, out for at least an hour a day, walking and thinking. And I started to feel a bit more creative. I could almost feel my brain waking up. It made me think, you know how you go to a dentist and your jaw's all frozen and then
mm,
gradually it thaws out. I could almost feel that process going on with my thoughts. And I used to get all sorts of ideas, and I would have to stop on my walk sometimes and write them in my phone in case I forgot, the ideas coming at me from every
wow.
direction. And then I started getting this idea about running workshops, because obviously as an HR director, I've got a lot of expertise in training and development, and
Mm,
I've designed and facilitated hundreds of workshops over the years. And I
mm,
thought I could design something a bit like Tribe Sober ran in London, because there was absolutely nothing here, it was
mm,
AA or
mm,
nothing. So I thought, I wonder if I could try a workshop. So I did design a workshop quite easily using some of Annie's ideas, the mindset, because
yeah.
we didn't cover any of that in the Tribe Sober. So I based it on the mindset and a toolbox, that kind of thing. But it was more about connection, because I really believe connection's the opposite of addiction.
Yeah.
So I designed my workshop, did some slides, hired a hotel room here in Cape Town, and just did a Facebook ad, and it was sold out within 24 hours.
Wow.
I was
Amazing.
thinking, oh, maybe I'm onto something here. And I remember I was terribly nervous because I mean, I'm a confident trainer, but this topic was new to me, really. I wasn't confident in my expertise to teach it, but I calmed myself down and said that I'm a facilitator, which I was, and I do
Mm,
have the experience of doing this myself. So
Mm.
the workshop went really well, and then I ran one in Joburg, and then I ran one in London with Claire Pooley, who you probably know.
Yeah.
She was my
Mm.
co-facilitator. So that I was
Mm.
doing lots of workshops. I did those for a couple of years. And then people started saying to me, we love the content and we want more content, because I used to say things like sobriety is a springboard for self-development. So they said, we
Yeah.
want self-development, we want more courses from you. And also, we want to stay connected with you and the people that we've met on the workshops.
Mm.
So I put this in my brain and thought about it a bit. And I thought, well, maybe a membership would work. So that's
Mm.
when I started a membership. And I'd been an executive coach in corporate. So I retrained as a recovery coach so that we could offer
Mm.
the coaching and the challenges. And
Mm.
gradually it all came together, and I assembled a little team to help me, a couple of recovery coaches and someone to help with the admin and the marketing.
Mm.
And it's been great. It'll be 8 years in November that I've been running Tribe Sober,
Mm. Yeah,
and
amazing.
it's been fabulous. I've just loved working, all the people we've come across. I remember I used to describe this journey as life-changing, and I always felt a bit cringy when I said that. I thought, oh, it sounds so salesy, but really I've witnessed so many women change their lives
Mm.
radically since I've been doing this, that I've got no compunction at all. I'm quite happy to say that this is a life-changing experience.
Yeah.
And I've also loved, even though we do our workshops, we call them masterclass now, and we do it on Zoom, because it started in the pandemic, and then
Mm.
we decided to stick with that format because we got people from all over the world then, rather than just these local physical ones. And
Mm.
since I've been podcasting about 4 years now. We've got much more international, because many Americans and Brits also listen to the podcast. So
Mm.
we've grown and we're international. And I just love the workshops, even when they're on Zoom, just the vulnerability of people in a community. And it always blows me away how open people are.
Mm.
Even we start off with a little share, and I say to people, you can share as much or as little as you want to.
Mm.
And you can see the relief in people's faces when they start saying just how unhappy alcohol has been making them.
Mm.
They're releasing such a burden, and the others are listening, and you can see they're thinking, oh, I'm not the only one.
Mm.
And it's very powerful stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. And I'm sure you've helped so many women and inspired them as well with your story. But
Yeah, well,
it's
I think
interesting.
because I'm quite old, a lot of people that might have thought, oh well, what's the point? I'm getting older, so I'll just carry on.
Yeah.
They look at me and they think, oh well, maybe there is a point to doing this as you get older.
Yeah.
And yeah, I say to people, it's given me a second lease of life, really, because
Mm.
I'm 72 years old and I spring out of bed at 6 a.m. every morning, and I can't wait to start the day, really.
Yeah. Well, it obviously suits you because you look amazing and you would not think you are 72. So I can see you living it well into the blue zones age. So we've still got a lot of life ahead of you. I love the fact that you said that it's life changing. And absolutely, it made me chuckle when you said it was a bit cringy when you said it before. Because I
You're a
always
bit
say,
sick in your mouth.
exactly.
Did I just say
I
that?
know, because I say it's a superpower, and I always say it, and I fundamentally believe it.
We've
But
got it on our website, sobriety is a superpower.
yeah, exactly. And I just think that if you haven't experienced it, you do probably think that we're Bulu and that what are we talking about and how can it make such a difference? But it is fundamentally just a domino habit, isn't it? And I'm absolutely agree that if you get rid of this one thing, you're opening your life up to everything and
Yeah.
you can do anything you want to
Yeah,
do
that's the
in
feeling, isn't it?
any
If
at
I can
any
do this,
age.
I can
Yeah.
do anything. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, we're
yeah.
running a challenge at the moment, a 66-day challenge, and we have sober people on there. Some of our community wanted to be involved, so they're what
Mm,
I call our cheerleaders. And then we've got lots of new people that are new to sobriety. And there's one of them, you can tell that she's really cynical about all this kind of rah-rah superpower nonsense that she probably thinks it is. And she put a message on the WhatsApp group and she said, there's a lot of generalities going around, a lot of people saying that life is better without alcohol. And she said, what I'd like is to hear some evidence. I want to have specific examples of why life could possibly be better without my wine. And it was great because all the cheerleaders piled in with all the examples. And there are so many tangible examples, aren't there?
yeah, absolutely. What would you say are your top three things that you've experienced?
I think energy really, because I remember hitting 60 and feeling exhausted and rather
Mm,
depressed and
mm,
thinking, oh, I'm so tired all the time. And then I thought, well, this is what getting old is like, obviously.
mm, mm,
And now I'm a lot older than 60 and I've
mm,
just got endless energy. And I really
mm,
think that alcohol saps our energy and our drive and our motivation.
mm,
So I love the way that we get our curiosity back and want to
mm,
explore and we experience the everyday pleasures again.
yeah.
Yeah, so energy and health and personally, I feel these days I've got such a sense of purpose I
Mm,
never had in corporates. I used to work for Christie's Auction House and it was great. I mean, I loved it. It was like working in a theatre, really. But all I was doing there when I analyze it is making rich shareholders richer. It didn't really have any deep meaning. But
mm,
I feel like my work has a meaning now. What's cool is that all those skills that I picked up during my corporate career, like coaching and facilitation and
mm,
communication, etc., I'm now using them in
mm,
this job, which is more meaningful. So I love
yeah,
the kind of synergy of that.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, purpose and energy and health and a new lease of life.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, if that hasn't sold the listener, I don't know what would. So, I
I
think
know.
I'd
We're
go
like
for
a
that.
pair of salespeople, aren't we?
I know.
It happens, so many of us in Tribe Sober, because what's cool is because our membership's been going since 2018,
Mm,
and people join us and, well, to be fair, they don't all get sober, but the ones that do the work get
mm,
sober. They fall
mm,
into two categories. People do what they need to do and they get sober, or people don't get sober and they drift away because they're not
mm.
ready to do the work. They think we're just going to wave a magic wand and they'll
Yeah.
be sober. So the ones that stay, some of them say to us, oh, well, thank you very much, I'm sober now, I'm off into the sunset, and they wave
Mm,
goodbye and we're very happy and we wish them well.
mm,
And then there's people that want to stick around because they love the community. I mean, after all these years, we're almost like family now. Some of us, we know
yeah.
each other so well and we've met physically. And what they love is, as much as I feel I've got my purpose, they have purpose out of helping new people come
Mm,
through and just supporting them and inspiring them. So
mm.
that's why the community thing is really working so well.
Yeah, amazing. And I think you're right. I think there is this sense of wanting to give back, isn't there? Once
Yes,
you've experienced it, you then want to, you get
yes,
this real sense of, I need to help others see this
yes,
because I
yes,
feel like so many women, especially women, are holding themselves back to an extent or not really living their full life, which they're absolutely capable of living and just not quite getting over the line. And actually, you get rid of this thing, you're
yeah.
off to the races. And I fundamentally believe it. So it's really
We
interesting
need
what you
to
said about
fight
your
back as well. We
community.
need to fight back because women have been particularly targeted by the liquor industry for
Absolutely.
decades now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if you know the story of marketing in the alcohol world, but what happened
Mm,
is Philip Morris from the cigarette industry. He bought Miller's beer. This is about 20 years ago, if not more. And he decided that the sales were very flat. So he decided that they were going to use the cigarettes marketing playbook and apply it to alcohol. So they broke down all the sectors, in the way that happens in marketing. And they decided that the female sector was underperforming. So they threw everything at it. They said, right, we've got to get those women, we've got to get them drinking. What do we do? And in the UK, for example, in the 90s, suddenly all these wine bars started springing up. So you didn't have to go to these grotty pubs. You went to nice wine bars with your girlfriend. And the whole culture started changing. We'd have wine in our pretty bottles. And I read the other day, we now have Mom Water. Have you seen that one? It's basically vodka in a little can, vodka and water in a very pretty little can, and it's called Mom Water. So the idea is you just pop it into your baby changing thing. I mean, they're coming at us from every direction, and it's shocking. I'm sure you've seen the stats that there's an epidemic of over drinking in the female population. We're the ones that are dying and getting liver disease in 20s and 30s. So yeah,
it's so true. And I remember it was really Ladette's as well. It's keeping up with the boys and who can drink the most beer, which was, bizarre. And then the whole Sex and the City thing, and that just glamorizing cosmopolitans and drinking and everyone looking fabulous and wearing the chicest things. And that was the lifestyle that we all so wanted.
That's what big alcohol have done, haven't they? They've hijacked the feminist movement in the most cynical way, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. So the more women, I think, that can hear this message and take it. But to your point, I was interested when you said there are two categories. There are people that just are not yet ready for the message, and there's only so much you can do, and they won't be there yet, but you hope that they will come back to it. But it is one of those things that you really can't expect anyone to do. You're not going to tell anybody to stop drinking because they need to make that decision in order for it to work, because it just doesn't work. For me, if you told me probably 5 years ago that I wouldn't be drinking, that I'd be doing what I'm doing now, and that would have written a book, and I'd be preaching about it on a podcast and all the rest of it, I'd have been like, what are you talking about? There is no way I would not be drinking. Even after my 21-day journey, there was no way I saw myself getting through Christmas alcohol free. So it just wouldn't have correlated at all. So I absolutely get the people who are probably listening and thinking, this all sounds wonderful, but I don't really get it. And
but
it's
if
because
they are listening, there's a little something in their head.
Yes, there's a little bit. Absolutely.
Of course, all about the cognitive dissonance and the fact that we have this little voice saying, I think you might be drinking too much. And then the subconscious piles in and says, oh, you can't stop drinking. You'll lose all your friends.
Exactly.
So you have that constant argument. I had it for decades.
Yeah. And so with Tribe Sober, tell me a bit about what's involved in the membership, what people can get from it, and how they can find out more if they're interested.
Yeah, well, the membership, we say to people, take it easy and listen and learn to start with. So we have quite a few WhatsApp groups because we don't like them to be too big. So we tend to put people in WhatsApp groups for their country. And we also have what we call accountability groups, because we think that it's important that people in their first month, for example, that they're with other people in their first month. And we always have some cheerleaders in there to keep an eye on them. And then after the month, they go on to 30 days plus. And then when people get to 6 months, we put them in another group. And then we've got our platinum group for 2 years plus. So we have all that connection. And then every Saturday afternoon, I do what we call our Zoom cafe. So we have quite a big group for that. And from all over the world, it's lovely. And that's just to check in, really. And sometimes we have a a guest speaker. You must come and do one, actually.
Oh, thank you. I'd love
So,
to.
and then my colleague Sue, she opens up her Zoom every day and she just opens it, and then you'll get 6 or 7 people. It's always small groups, but they
Mm,
have quite deep conversations on
yeah,
those.
yeah.
So, because of my training background, we've got this thing called the member journey. So, it's content really that people can dip in and out of according
Mm,
to the stage of sobriety they're at. And we've
mm,
we've done playlists of our podcast. There's lots and lots of content there, but we try not to overwhelm people because it can be quite overwhelming. And the
mm,
connection is really what gets people to it. And we have a masterclass, and we also have a 3-month program called Breaking Free, where we have quite a small group, usually about 15, and they go through 3 months because we figured out that those first 3 months are the most difficult. So if we can give people lots of support during those 3 months, so
mm,
there's an online course and there's a
mm,
podcast every day and there's articles. So we've designed
mm,
that to give people maximum support, really. And they get very close because they're just in this group of 15 and they have a Zoom call, just that group, once a week. So we've
mm.
got plenty going on.
Gosh, that's amazing. So the Breaking Free course is part of the membership as well. It's all,
No,
or
no,
is it
that's
extra?
separate.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's extra. Okay, but people can join. Do they have to be members to do that, or can
No,
they
no.
do it
But
separately?
they
Okay.
nearly always join at the end of it because they've got the
Okay.
connection, then they want to stay
Yeah,
connected.
of course. Brilliant, brilliant. That sounds fab. So, if someone wanted to get started and they're listening and they have got that cognitive dissonance, but they're maybe thinking, maybe I should do something, what would you suggest they do?
Well, I think taking a break is a great way to start because you can always go back to drinking after the break if you don't find any benefits. But I do think, as someone that did dry January every year to prove that she wasn't an alcoholic and completely white knuckled it, I do think that there's reasons to go on longer than 30 days. And we recommend 66 days because apparently that's the length of time to build a new neural pathway.
Mm,
So even if you want to cut down, if you do this 66 days of abstinence, you've got a fighting chance then of changing your habits.
mm,
But yeah, I would say take a good break because you need to be alcohol free long enough to experience some benefits, because once the
mm,
benefits start coming in, you don't want to lose those benefits. You start thinking, well, I quite like having more energy and a clear head in the morning, and my
mm,
skin's cleared up, and I'm losing some weight. And
mm.
you think, do I really want to go back to feeling tired and
Mm,
demotivated?
yeah.
So we find, I mean, our 66-day challenge, which we run twice a year, we used to just run it here in South Africa and we called it Sober Spring. And then we
Mm.
found lots of Brits and Americans on it. So now we call it hashtag Sober 66, and we run it spring here, which is 1st of September, and spring in your part of the world as well.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
get lots of people doing that, and they get to 66 days and they say things like, I feel actually quite good. I think I'll just carry it on to 100 days. And
Mm,
then they go, maybe I'll try 6 months. And they're doing that because they're feeling better and better. And I think that's the way to do it. Because
mm.
we say that we don't use the F word at Tribe Sober because giving up alcohol forever is just too overwhelming.
It is.
But
Mm,
do it in stages, do it in steps, and then
mm,
it's doable, and you feel better with every step. So that keeps you
mm.
going.
Yeah. And I think that's really important because someone who's listening might be thinking, oh my goodness, but I don't want to commit to
Mm.
forever. And you just don't need to, do you? You can, as you say, it's a step-by-step thing. And I like the way that you do 66 days and then encourage people to do 100 and keep going. Because as you say, it's a lot less overwhelming for people to,
Yeah, and even the
and they can get their
66
head around
days,
it.
because we get people signing up and saying, oh, I feel overwhelmed at the thought of 66 days. So we say do your best. And we give them a tracker, a paper tracker, and it's a bit old school considering we've all got these trackers on
Yeah.
our phones. But I love it because you see all 66 days on one sheet of paper, and we say, put it on the fridge, get the kids involved, make it fun. Every
Yeah.
time you do an alcohol-free day, color in a little square, and that'll give you a little dopamine hit. Just aim to do some sober stretches if you think you can't do 66 days. And what happens is people keep scoring sober stretches and they get a little bit longer each time. And the
Yeah.
science says that, you don't have to do 66 days perfectly
No.
to create that new habit anyway, but just keep at it and see how many alcohol-free days you can get out of 66.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, isn't it? I think people put pressure on themselves. And if you've, it's certainly what I used to do when I tried to do dry January, is that if you don't do a couple of days, you feel like a failure. So what's the point in going back? You might as well drink. But I like the paper tracker idea, because
Yeah.
what you'll probably see is the majority of that
Yeah.
page
And you
is
think,
complete,
oh,
and you think,
mm,
gosh, I have done pretty well. And I also think people don't are not we're not well, personally I'm not, maybe it resonates with you, not very good at celebrating ourselves and celebrating little wins and even big wins. It can be
yeah,
it can feel a bit awkward. So by having that, it is a great way to encourage people to just acknowledge, look how far you've come and look what you've
yeah,
done, and celebrate it. And I really encourage my clients to celebrate every win that they have, because it's no matter how big or small,
yeah.
because we just
And
don't
those sober
I was
first.
never very good at it, but yes, I'm getting better.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
the sober first, you were telling me about your book and how you taught people through the sober first. But
yeah.
I would say people seem so intimidated. Well, I remember I was my first sober flight to the UK. I thought, how on earth
Yes.
am I going to get through that? That was always an excuse for me to have a few hours of hard drinking. But once I'd done it once, you just have to get through these things once, and it's tough. And sober holidays, I
Yeah.
again was horrified at the thought of doing a sober holiday. But
Yeah.
then I began to relish coming home after holiday, feeling refreshed and great rather than absolutely exhausted, which
Needing
was,
another holiday.
I thought, well, that's the sign of a good holiday, isn't it, when you're staggering home?
And do you remember those? Can you give the person who's listening a tip on how to get through that first sober flight? Because I remember mine. What did you
Yeah.
do?
Oh, it seemed so long, I must say. I
Mm.
thought, oh, will this thing ever end? Well, you have to have a kit, don't you? I mean, you've got to plan what you're going
Yeah.
to drink and have movies with you and books. And
Yeah.
once you've done it once, and also I say to people, reward yourself, because it's
Mm.
quite an achievement. So make sure that you do something special that you really want to do after you've achieved that
Okay.
sober flight, sober
Yeah.
holiday.
Yeah.
I remember my first sober wedding. My feet were killing me because standing around in high heels forever. And somehow when I drank, I didn't get those sore feet. I think I must have anesthetized
I
them.
think so. Oh, it's so funny, isn't it? It's amazing. Yeah, when you look back and all the things that you did prior, and yeah, and how different it is, but so much better. I mean, for me, sober holidays were just a game changer. As you say, you come back refreshed, but also excited about
Mm.
coming home. Whereas I think I used to dread it. You'd be so excited about your holiday, and you'd count down to that wonderful holiday somewhere. You'd have your week or your 2 weeks away, and then you'd get on the flight and you'd be full of dread and just thinking, oh, here we go again, back to
I always
reality.
have to book my
And
next holiday when I got back,
exactly,
just to have something else to look forward to. Whereas now I
exactly.
enjoy every day, I don't always have to have something in the distance to strive
Yeah,
for. I've
yeah,
just learned to enjoy the everyday pleasures.
and that makes such a difference, I have to say. It is amazing when you do see the joy in every day as opposed to counting down. And again, you don't realize you're doing it because you're surrounded by people. I
Who
can
are
think of
doing it
someone,
too.
exactly. I can think of someone who literally plans through, she's a whiz on air miles and all the rest of it. And she just plans everything to the T. She knows when to go online to book the flights, to get her flights in advance. It's like a year in advance to sort of know where she's going. And that is literally what her life's about. And for me, I just think, wow, that's all she's wanting to do. You know, she works really hard, but then she's just
Yeah.
looking forward to the next holiday all the time. And I think it's quite sad, really. I think there's so much of life that we all have missed because we've been wishing our lives away. And
Yeah.
so to be
Yeah.
able to enjoy the moment and actually take each day as opposed to waiting 3 months for the next massive hit, dopamine hit, or the holiday, or whatever it is that you're excited about, is just amazing. And so I'm very grateful for that. Um, yeah. Okay, so we're coming to the end, and I always like to ask my guests, what does thriving alcohol-free mean to you? And so I'd love to hear your answer.
Thriving alcohol free. Yeah, I love that expression because I often say to people, there's no point being sober if you're not happy, because then you're just surviving.
Yes.
We have to learn how to create an alcohol free life that we love, and then we'll
Mm,
thrive.
mm,
And because what I was doing is I was numbing a lot with alcohol. I had a life that I wanted to escape from, whereas
mm.
now I've got a life that I
Yes.
love. So components of that life, I feel free. And I was watching a movie on Netflix last night, and I was saying to myself, I wonder how long it'll be before the star of this show comes out. And of course, that's alcohol. So I time it
Mm,
now, and it was
mm,
about 3 minutes. So just
mm.
seeing through all this marketing, I feel smart. I feel
Yeah.
powerful. I've thought, okay, guys, big alcohol, I've given you enormous amounts of money and
Yeah.
some of my health over the years, but that's it. You're not having any more. So I think there's a power in seeing through all that. And as you say, the superpower that we all feel when we've done this, because it's not an easy thing to do. As
Mm,
human beings, we like to be in the herd, and we've
mm,
stepped away from the herd and we've made
yeah.
ourselves lonely and vulnerable, but we've
Mm,
created new tribes, new
mm.
herds,
Yeah.
and we've made ourselves much, much stronger because of it.
Yeah.
And yes, so I feel free and I feel powerful and I feel like my life has purpose.
Wow. I love that. And powerful in what way?
Well, as we were saying earlier, Dupe, if we can do this thing, if we can quit drinking, I mean, I drank for 40 years heavily, and I feel if I can do that and be happy about it, then I can do almost anything that I turn my hand to. So
Yeah.
that's the power, I think. So it's confidence, isn't it? More than power,
Mm,
perhaps.
mm.
It
No,
gives
I
you
love the
courage,
power.
courage and confidence and power and
And all the
whatever.
rest of the good things.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Is there any last thing you'd like to leave the listener with?
How about our website, which is tribesober.com? Easy
Yeah.
to remember. And our podcast comes out every Saturday morning. And I've just recorded number 208 this morning. So
Oh,
there's plenty of them.
congratulations. Brilliant. And I'm on it. So that was fantastic. 208. Wonderful.
Oh,
Thank you. Brilliant. Brilliant. And that's a huge feat. I heard that the majority of podcasts don't get past, is it episode 7 or episode
yeah.
9? So to get to
Yeah.
208,
When I
that's
read that, I thought, well, I've
amazing.
got to get to number 8 at least. But
That's
like you,
fantastic.
I'm sure you love podcasting too. You meet such amazing people. I mean, I never would have
Yeah.
met you if I wasn't
Yeah.
podcasting.
Exactly.
And I've met people from all over the world. And you can contact anybody. I don't know if you've read Dopamine Nation yet by a lady called, she's a Stanford psychiatrist called Dr. Anna Lemke.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
this book is a real top seller. And she's a a very well-known academic, and I
Mm.
read her book and I just loved it, and I thought, oh, I'm going to send this lady an email, see if she'll come on my podcast. And she just replied and said, I'd be delighted. So, all right then. But if you didn't have a podcast, you couldn't really ring up someone like that and say, can I talk to you for an hour, please?
Of course. How fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great thing to do, and it takes a lot of work, but
Oh,
it's so rewarding. And
yeah.
you're right, you do get lots of opportunities to meet
And
and
I've
talk
learned
to lots of
so
people and
much.
learn lots. Exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean, this whole field, I'm 9 years into it now, but it's so full of science and psychology and biology and
Mm.
neuroscience. And I think there's an awful lot to get to grips with there, to learn. And there's new things coming out all the time. So
Yeah.
I never get bored learning about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, long may it continue. So thank you so much for being on the show and really appreciate it. And thank you for having me on as a guest as well. And yeah, I'd love to keep in touch and see how
We
you
will, we
get
will.
on.
I'm going to
Yeah,
read your
perfect.
book.
Thank you. Okay, well, good to speak. Take care.
You
Bye.
think I do pay.
Well, thank you, Janet. I really appreciate you being on, and thank you for sharing about your breast cancer journey and about drinking in the corporate world and your coaching and the brain and everything else we touched on. It was a really great conversation. I can't quite get over the fact that you're 72. You look fabulous. Anyway, I hope you found the conversation helpful. And as I said, if you would like to still join the Summer Fun Summit, then feel free to grab the link in the show notes. And if you have been thinking you want to take a break from alcohol and but you're not sure where to start or you'd like some guidance, then feel free to book a clarity call with me. I do a 30-minute clarity call to really help you to think about where you are on your alcohol-free journey. And so by the end of it, you will have gained a clear understanding of your current relationship with alcohol and its impact on your life. And you will have received some tools and tips to help you get started. So if that sounds like something for you, then feel free to book a complimentary call and I look forward to speaking to you. Okay, well, I do hope you have the most fabulous week and I will see you on the next episode. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe so you get alerted every time I drop a new episode. I'd love it if you could rate, review, and share this episode. Feel free to tag me on Instagram at Thrive Alcohol Free and follow me for daily tips. If you would like to work with me, I offer one-to-one coaching sessions and have my group coaching program. If you're not yet ready for coaching, I also have a self-paced online course, which is a companion to my book, A Cocktail of Clarity. All the links are in the show notes. I will see you in the next episode. Have a wonderful week. Take care.